The double pivot, one of the most important tactical approaches in today's game. Here's some ways you can do that in Football Manager. So what is a double pivot? Normally it's two players in the defensive midfield zone in a set formation. Commonly used in a 4-2-3-1, you might see it in a 4-2-4, where they're both set back, sitting deep. Having said that, there's loads of different ways you can form this double pivot without necessarily starting that way. Today we're going to have a look at that. First up, it's using the double inverted wing back. Now what this means is it means we don't have to have anybody in the defensive midfield zone, as when we attack, these two jump into there like that and they form our double pivot. Here it is in match. You can see Cuadrado there and Di Marco there, my two inverted wing backs. We've now moved inside to form the double pivot, which allows us to attack in a completely different way, specifically allowing those three central midfielders to bomb on. Next up, we're going to form our double pivot using the centre back, and we're going to do this by using the libero. Defend or support, it's entirely up to you. For him to completely remain in that pivot, you probably want him on defend. What that means is when we get the ball in sustained possession, he will move into this zone here alongside Barella. And especially with this setup, when we've got the two inverted fullbacks, they'll come across and we'll start looking a little bit like this. And these guys will have a bit of freedom to move forward. So here it is in match. You can see Pavard, who is libero. He's going to jump into the defensive midfield zone with this man to form the double pivot on this occasion. Sanchez cuts inside. Now you see it. We've got three across the back there. Then we've got our double pivot coming in from Pavard and Asllani. Play it on a little bit more. When we keep the ball and Pavard's confident, we've got the ball. Up he goes into that midfield zone, meaning all the other players can start moving on up. And those two can sit in that area there. So that's another way to get a double pivot. Now it goes without saying the easiest way to get a double pivot is to actually have a double pivot. And if you're going to do that, your best bet is probably to have one more slightly defensive player and one more creative player. You can either have him as a DLP there, perhaps a Regista, if you're feeling a bit more adventurous and you want to back up the attacks, a Secunde Volante. But obviously that is the easiest way to get double pivot, and that's going to unleash your fullbacks a little bit more. So in match we go. You can see the two highlighted there, Hakan and Asllani, in that defensive midfield zone, and doing that allows Cuadrado and Di Marco to bomb as high as they like, knowing that they're pretty safe because they've got that cover back there. Hakan starting moves off in that deep line playmaker role. It's probably why I wouldn't go for a Secunde role in here if you want a true double pivot, because the Secunde Volante will bomb forward and leave it. So if you do want a double in there, it's best to probably choose one of the other roles, one of the more defensive roles if you like. And you can see as we attack that they still kind of maintain that central base in there. And if you want to keep it more classical, you don't have to have two starting in that position. You can have a slightly more withdrawn midfielder to join him. For example, if we drop this guy down to deep line playmaker on defend, nudge this guy to support. When we're in match, you'll find they'll be alongside each other a lot more. This guy will bomb on. So we've just won the ball back. Hakan, who starts higher up in midfield, pretty much next to our defensive midfielder now. And you can see Mkhitaryan about to get that bit further on, knowing that those two guys are going to form our pivot. There it is. 1 and 2. So Hakan's actually deeper than him now, even though he started in his start position higher up. Mkhitaryan now free reign to back up the striker, basically acting as a second striker, thanks to that double pivot. Any player that you do choose to play in this position, whether it's a traditional defensive midfielder, whether it's a wing back coming in, whether it's a centre back coming in, you want someone who's capable of playing in midfield, who's also got a good keen eye on defending as well. So there's a few different ways you can form a double pivot. Let us know if you give one of them a try.